Bethlehem Iron Works, Pennsylvania, February 1889. 3 hours past midnight. The furnace has been banked for the night, its fires damped down to a slow smolder. The building is silent except for the tick and pop of cooling metal. 1700 degrees at sunset. Now, barely 800. The charging door stands 7 feet tall, cast iron, 4 inches thick. It weighs nearly 600 pounds. 2 men are required to swing it closed on its massive hinges. The latch is a simple hook and eye forged steel made to hold against the pressure of the blast. In the darkness, something shifts. A low metallic groan echoes through the empty foundry, then a crack sharp as a rifle shot. The door shudders, the latch holds. For a moment everything is still. Then the hinges scream. The door swings open, not slowly, not gently. It tears away from the frame with a deep, resonant boom that shakes dust from the rafters. The sound rolls through the building like thunder trapped in a barrel. The door crashes against its stop with enough force to crack the mounting bracket. And then silence. The furnace stands open to the night, its interior glowing a dull orange. A thin wisp of steam rises from somewhere deep inside. Outside, frost collects on the windows. Inside, the temperature begins to drop. By morning, it will be 40 degrees colder. The day crew arrives at 5:30, their breath fogging in the pre-dawn cold. Thomas Garrett, the charge hand, sees it first. The furnace door hanging wide, the latch broken clean off its mounting. He stops in his tracks. The other men gather behind him. Nobody speaks for a long moment. Garrett approaches slowly. His boots crunch through a thin layer of frost that shouldn't be there, not this far from the outer doors. The iron frame is cold to the touch. He runs his hand along the hinge. It's intact but scored with fresh marks, bright metal showing through the oxidation. On the floor, 3 distinct arcs are scraped into the dust and ash. The door has opened and closed multiple times, each arc deeper than the last, radiating out from the hinge like the path of a compass. The outermost arc ends at a pile of brick chips where the door struck the wall. Inside the furnace, the fire has nearly gone out. The brickwork is dark except for a few sullen red embers deep in the throat of the blast chamber. Water has condensed on the inner walls, running down in dark rivulets that hiss faintly against the hot metal of the lower grate. Garrett leans in, listening. There's a sound, subtle, a kind of breathing, air moving somewhere in the flue system, pulling inward in slow, rhythmic draws. One of the younger men, Patrick Sullivan, clears his throat. "Door's been forced, Mr. Garrett. Someone's been at the works." Garrett shakes his head. "Look at the latch. It didn't break from the outside. It broke from the inside. Something pulled this door open." He points to the twisted metal of the hook. The fracture is clean, the kind of break that comes from tension, not compression. The door didn't blow open. It was pulled. "But there's no pressure," Sullivan says. "Fire's nearly cold." Garrett doesn't answer. He's staring at the floor again, at those 3 arcs. The first one is shallow, tentative. The second cuts deeper. The third has gouged the brick underneath. Whatever happened, it happened more than once, and it got stronger each time. The furnace is relatched. The hook is replaced with a heavier one, half again as thick. The door is tested. 2 men pull against it with their full weight. It doesn't budge. That night Garrett stays late. He sits on a crate near the furnace, a lantern at his feet, watching. The building cools. The shadows deepen. Around 11 o'clock he hears it. A low sound almost below hearing. A vibration in the floor, a hum in the iron frame of the furnace. It builds slowly over the course of minutes, a rising pressure in the air itself. Then the hinges begin to creak. Garrett stands, moving toward the door. It's trembling. Just slightly, but it's there, a shiver running through 600 pounds of cast iron. The latch is holding, but the door is pulling against it, the metal groaning under strain. Then, with a sound like a cannon firing in an enclosed space, The door tears free. It doesn't swing open. It flies open. The hinges shriek. The door slams against the wall with enough force to crack the brick behind it. Garrett is thrown backward by the concussion of displaced air, landing hard on the floor 10 feet away. He lies there gasping, ears ringing. The furnace stands open, exhaling a cold, damp breath into the room. No heat, no light, just a yawning darkness and that strange, pulling draft. When the morning crew arrives, they find 3 new arcs on the floor. The door has opened 5 inches farther than the night before. The wall is cracked, and the latch, the new latch, forged from half-inch steel, has been twisted into a corkscrew. John Mackenzie, the foundry foreman, arrives with 2 assistants and a crate of tools. He's a Scotsman, 20 years in ironworks, and he doesn't believe in mysteries. Everything has a cause. Everything has a mechanism. He starts with the hinges. They're pin and socket type cast bronze, each one weighing 40 pounds. The pins are intact, the sockets unworn. No play, no looseness. The mounting bolts are tight, driven through 18 inches of brick and mortar. He checks the counterweight system. Some furnace doors use a balance weight to ease opening and closing. This one doesn't. It's a simple gravity door designed to stay closed by its own mass. He examines the door itself, running his hands over the surface looking for warping, for any sign that thermal expansion might have changed its shape. It's true, straight edges. The seal where it meets the frame is tight, no gaps, no daylight showing through. The damper plates inside the flue are next. These control airflow, preventing backdrafts when the furnace is cold. He climbs the exterior ladder to the top of the stack, 20 feet up, and peers down into the chimney. The dampers are in place, angled correctly, their edges sealed with furnace cement. He descends, brushing soot from his hands. His assistants are waiting. One of them, a man named Harris, holds up a bent piece of metal. It's the 3rd latch, the one installed just yesterday morning. It lasted 11 hours. Mackenzie takes it, feeling the weight. The steel is cold, but there's something else, a faint residue slick to the touch. He brings it close to his face. Water, condensation, frozen and then melted. The metal is wet. Run your hand along the inside of the door frame, he tells Harris. Harris does. His fingers come away damp. It's weeping like it's sweating. Mackenzie nods slowly. Water means temperature differential, cold air meeting hot metal. But the furnace is cold now, has been for days, so where is the heat coming from? He steps to the threshold and stands very still, eyes closed. There. A draft, not pushing out but pulling in. A gentle, steady draw of air flowing into the furnace, down into the flue system. Get me a pressure gauge, he says, and a thermometer, and someone who knows how to use them. The engineers arrive the next afternoon. 2 men from the Bethlehem Steel main office, sent by telegram. They bring instruments, mercury barometers, thermocouple probes, anemometers to measure air velocity. They start at the top. One man, a young engineer named William Foster, climbs to the roof and lowers a weighted line down the center of the chimney stack, 38 feet to the bottom. He drops a thermometer down next, calling out readings every 5 feet. At the top, 31 degrees. At 10 feet, 33 degrees. At 20 feet, 37 degrees. At 30 feet, 42 degrees. He pulls the thermometer up and stares at it. It's inverted, he calls down. Temperature increases with depth. The cold air is sitting on top. His colleague, an older man named Samuel Pierce, nods from the ground. Chimney effect, but backwards. They move to the furnace itself. Pierce positions himself at the open door with a candle, watching the flame. It bends inward, pulled toward the darkness of the charging throat. Not strongly, but unmistakably. Air is moving into the furnace. He holds up a wetted finger. Cold. The air flowing past is colder than the ambient temperature in the foundry. He can feel it on his face now, a gentle exhalation from somewhere deep in the building. Foster joins him carrying a glass tube half filled with colored water, a crude manometer to measure pressure differences. He holds it at the threshold. The water level shifts immediately, rising on the furnace side, dropping on the room side. Negative pressure, Foster says. The furnace is at lower pressure than the room. It's pulling air inward. They wait until evening. As the temperature drops outside, the effect strengthens. The flame of Pierce's candle bends horizontal. The manometer shows a difference of 0.2 inches of water column, trivial in most contexts, but sustained over hours, acting on 600 pounds of iron with leverage from a 7-foot moment arm. Pierce does the calculation in his notebook. 1,200 pounds of pulling force, more than enough. At 9 o'clock, they hear the sound, low, resonant, a vibration that seems to come from the furnace frame itself. Foster places his hand on the brickwork. It's humming. The entire structure is vibrating at a frequency just below the threshold of hearing. The door begins to move. They step back. The hinges creak. The door shudders, pulling against the temporary wooden brace they've installed. The humming grows louder, deeper, a sound felt in the chest more than heard with the ears. Then with a crack like breaking ice, the brace splinters. The door swings open, faster than before, and slams into the wall. The boom echoes through the foundry, rolling away into the darkness. Pierce and Foster stand in the settling dust, staring at each other. They've just watched a furnace door open itself with enough force to break a 4x4 timber brace. And they still don't fully understand why. The next day, they bring more equipment. A clock-driven recording barograph to track pressure changes over time. A series of thermocouples placed at intervals throughout the flue system. A notebook full of calculations and diagrams. They discover the rhythm first. Every night as the temperature drops, the pressure inside the furnace drops faster. The cooling brickwork contracts, reducing the volume of the internal chambers. But more than that, water vapor inside the flue begins to condense. Steam that was invisible at high temperature becomes liquid water at low temperature. A cubic foot of steam at 800 degrees, cooled to 50 degrees, becomes a few teaspoons of water. The rest of the volume simply disappears. Nature abhors a vacuum. Air rushes in to fill the void, but it can't come down the chimney, not easily. The cold air up there is denser than the warmer air below, creating a plug, a stable inversion layer that blocks flow. So the air comes in through the door, or tries to. The pressure difference builds slowly over hours. 0.1 inches of water, 0.2, 0.3. The force on the door increases. The brickwork around the furnace, cooling and contracting, begins to resonate. The entire frame acts as a tuning fork, vibrating at its natural frequency. The vibration loosens the door in its frame just microscopically, but that's enough. The pressure finds the weakness, works at it, pulls harder. The hinges, perfectly balanced when the door is closed, become a lever system when the door begins to open. The weight of the door, instead of holding it shut, helps pull it open once it's past the tipping point. And then there's the chimney effect itself, but inverted. Cold air pooling at the top of the stack, dense and heavy. Warm air trapped in the lower flues and combustion chambers, lighter and less dense. The cold column wants to fall. The warm air wants to rise. But they can't trade places, not through the narrow throat of the blast chamber. The system is locked. Pressure builds. The structure hums. And every night at the same time, when the temperature differential reaches its peak, the door tears free. Pierce writes it all down, sketching diagrams of air flow, pressure gradients, resonance patterns. Foster checks his calculations 3 times. It's a condensation vacuum, Pierce says finally. Combined with thermal inversion in the stack, structural resonance in the frame, and weight-assisted momentum once the door starts moving. 4 separate mechanisms, all working together. Foster nods slowly. The furnace is breathing. It's trying to equalize pressure, but the geometry won't let it, so it pulls the door open by force. They sit in silence for a moment, listening to the tick and pop of cooling metal. Somewhere in the flue system, water drips steadily, each drop condensed from steam that once roared through these chambers at 2,000 degrees. "How do we stop it?" Foster asks. Pierce looks up at the massive brick structure, at the iron door hanging open once again. "We give it a way to breathe." They install a pressure relief system, a series of vents in the lower flue, spring-loaded, designed to open when internal pressure drops below a certain threshold. Cold air can enter through these vents instead of forcing the door. The pressure equalizes slowly, gently, without violence. They also install a damper high in the chimney stack, manually adjustable to prevent the formation of cold air columns. When the furnace is banked, the damper closes, trapping warm air in the stack, preventing inversion. The fix costs $18 in materials and takes 2 days to install. That night the crew gathers to watch. The temperature drops, the pressure begins to fall. They hear the familiar low hum, the vibration in the frame. Then quietly the new vents click open. Air whispers in through the lower flues. The pressure stabilizes. The door remains closed. At midnight, Garrett places his hand on the door frame. It's cold but still. No vibration, no pull, just solid, silent iron doing what it was designed to do. The furnace at Bethlehem Iron Works ran for another 32 years. The door never opened by itself again, but the story spread, told and retold in foundries across Pennsylvania and beyond. The furnace that breathed, the door that wouldn't stay closed. Most men understood it instinctively, even if they couldn't explain the physics. Pressure builds, temperature drops, metal contracts, air moves. These are the forces that shape the industrial world, invisible and relentless. What surprised the engineers was the scale. That a pressure difference smaller than the weight of a few sheets of paper, sustained over time, could generate thousands of pounds of force. That a structure weighing hundreds of tons could resonate like a bell. That something as simple as cooling air could create a vacuum powerful enough to tear steel. The lesson was clear. Even the most massive industrial structures are systems in balance, responding to forces the human senses can barely detect. Temperature, pressure, resonance, momentum, each one small on its own, but together they can move mountains. Or at least, they can open a door that 600 pounds of iron says should stay closed. The furnace still stands, though it hasn't been lit in decades. The door hangs on its hinges, silent now, rusted but intact. And somewhere in the old brick flues, water still condenses on cold nights, dripping steadily in the darkness, a reminder of the breath that once filled these chambers. Steam and iron, pressure and void. The industrial age understood these things not as abstractions, but as forces you could feel in your bones, forces that built nations, and sometimes forces that opened doors.